Alright, end of the second turn and the approach continues. You kind of pan out, but coming in closer. Now, I think I screwed up because as far as I understand, Hector couldn't actually command these troops, even to move them out of Troy. That's a little disturbing to me. I think you'd have to organize someone and bring them back. But anyway, I ended up bringing someone back to command them because he's just the overall commander. Only the wing commanders have the right to command troops, by my understanding of it. But otherwise, we've got the Trojans doing the best they can to grab the river line. But up here, what is this? Menelaus, I think. Has spurred on some barbarian infantry, getting them to move 2, maybe even 3 times to push right to the river as fast as he can. He's going to cross that river, try to create a beachhead, and maybe push across with these chariots as well to give them some support. Bringing all the barbarians up. Now, the barbarians are the weak infantry here. They don't sound like they're weak, but the truth is they're just fast. Not as fast as the runners, and they're actually maybe not as tough as the runners are. Let me see if I have. I think I have them here. If we look, let's see, barbarian infantry versus runner infantry. The runners do better against the chariot too. The runners do better against runners. A little better against barbarian infantry and a little better against light infantry. So the barbarians are just, ill-trained, but they have some of the speed advantages of the runners, etc., which, on top of that, they have very high morale in some, or tactical quality in some cases. Not this guy, he's a light infantry. But you're seeing 6s and 7s as opposed to, 5s and 6s for pretty much the core of the shock infantry in this game. So the barbarians, well, you got some pretty good shock infantry kicking around here. My camera doesn't like to zoom in and stop anymore. There's an 8 somewhere, another 2, the Myrmidons. But yeah, we'll see how this approaches. So the setup for the set piece battle, which is another option. I mean, you could play this scenario so many different times, so many different ways. The scenario for the set piece action allows the Trojans to set up anywhere east of the river, and then the Daunians set up west of the river, but not within 10 hexes of Trojans. So the Trojans could set it up so that they hold the river line very well. I don't think we're going to see that in this scenario. One little thing of note, Hector is a better overall commander, though, which means he's more likely to succeed. Can't remember which. In the trumps, momentum rolls, you have to roll the actual commander. And I couldn't use a momentum roll to roll a commander because Hector was too far behind. Again, I think I screwed up, but that's no big deal. Gotta worry, though. The shock infantry have to come out of column, and I got to remember to do that. Got these couple of these counters kicking around to help remind me that they're in column. There just are not enough column markers. There aren't enough of a lot of the markers in this game to do what they suggest with them. Anyway. And at the end of 3 turns, Hector's got problems. You see, he's got these forces up here in column, and if he loses the initiative, the barbarian infantry are going to be able to strike and do some pretty big damage to him. He failed in his momentum check for the commander back here, who shouldn't be there. Should put him a little further up so that he can actually command his troops. But yeah, we're seeing a little bit of fire going on this heavier chariot over here, but for the most part it's going to be an infantry clash. These are higher quality infantry. Now Hector's a better leader, so he has a good chance of getting the jump and being able to drop these guys out of column and start advancing and maybe push the barbarians back across the stream. And a lot of pieces to turn back over because, well, with the Danans, I felt like I had too much of a mess and had to flip a lot of the counters over to their fake moved side. Well, Menelaus got the jump, the initiative from Agamemnon, and which is an unlikely thing because Hector has a +2 on the die roll. And we're seeing the barbarian infantry charging into that column. That's going to be very ugly for the Trojans. But I just noticed something interesting. A chariot without missile capabilities. I don't know if that's a typo. I'm going to have to look that up and see if the counter scan agrees with my counter sheet, because obviously there are already mistakes on play. That's really odd because chariots are just about useless, and this is, well, it is a chariot 3, so it can fight, but wow. That's kind of tough to believe. We'll see. That initial push in with the barbarian infantry is pretty effective. We can see a couple places where they engaged, but mainly they broke the enemy units. A few routed here. Some first blood. A big unit, actually. That was kind of painful. The advantages of hitting in column, well, the column unit has 2 off its tactical quality. That's the big one. You also get attacker superior, which, with the high quality of the units, that's not that big a deal. And then they pay an extra quality hit, which the rules say can rout you, but I can't see how, because you've got 2 off your tactical quality, then you improve by 1, then your tactical quality goes up by 2 after the battle as you become not in column anymore, and you take an additional quality hit. Well, you would have routed already if you were going to rout from that, so it just seems impossible to me, but whatever. We'll see what hits next. The Chariots down here did a drive-by. I was mistaken. These guys had javelins, and they fired, I think, at one of these chariots. Maybe not that one. Maybe, I don't know. At one of the chariots. I don't know who did the hit, who didn't. I'm going to ignore it and allow them to have fired. But, yeah. I'm not used to light chariots with javelineers either. It just wasn't something I was expecting. Well, attempting to establish a beachhead or whatever across the river using the barbarian infantry, even with that first strike against already against the units in column, well, it may not have worked out too well. What we end up seeing is a lot of those barbarians just being shattered on the second blow. Some down here, and then some losses here that I've got to account for. The shock infantry are much better. They attack on a 9, and they have attacker superiority against the barbarians. That is maybe the one thing, is that the barbarian infantry are better against the runners. But otherwise, the runners are better against just about everything else. Although, it's just a matter of degrees. Alright, onward. So the annoyance of having units routing back here forced me to throw one of the Achaean leaders, Nestor, back to the camp. It's got to be one of the leaders. Don't really want to use Agamemnon, although he's not a terrible choice because I could do hero movement and stuff like that, but I figure triggering the extra movement might be useful, especially since I only really have one guy who's in command of stuff up here with Menelaus, who's in command of stuff that really can take more than one action. The exception, of course, being I got these chariots stuck over here now, which is going to be kind of a problem. I'm going to have to figure out, unlike the normal roles of Chariots of Fire, where you can move stuff that's out of command, here you really can't. And by doing that, I also pushed my heroes forward. They don't do much, okay? They're worth some route points if they win battle, or if they die. So I'm keeping... It's not like the samurai battles where they actually, affected the morale of the situation in the battlefield or anything. No. They're a way to kill a heroic leader, but they're also, the weaker ones back here, Odysseus and Ajax, the lesser, I've thrown in the back because I don't want them killed. I threw Patroclus up because that'll get me the big boy, Achilles. Trojans crossed the river line to scare away some chariots. They did some damage to them, you know. I mean, running away when you're... Even chariots don't like to run away from people, I guess. I don't know. And a little attack that pushed one of the barbarian infantry into the rout pile back there. Well, that pretty much ends the turn. Just brought up some more of the Achaeans forward. Oh, I get to make rally attempts there. And I forgot to do that. And a momentum check. Oh, I forgot to do my attack too. I made an attack. Oh, well, it doesn't end the turn. And but I failed with a momentum check on the Trojans. I wanted to point something out. For some reason, Idomeneus here, or whatever his name actually is, and Menelaus to a lesser extent, and Momentum look very similar to me. From, you know, my eyes. For whatever reason, the length or whatever, it just triggers that, and I've made that mistake a couple of times. I didn't do it this turn. I've learned to kind of look more carefully. Alright, well, I'll take care of those little tasks I forgot. Clean up. Well, a couple of actions by Yodomedes, or whatever his name, Minis, whatever his name is, up here. Oh, I know, that's Agamemnon. Back here. Oh, no. See, it's very hard to read these suckers with my poor eyes. Anyway, he's managed to march forward, and here's what's going to be tricky. Some of my units are in column, up here, and everything that I haven't flipped over. I'm not using flipped over for having moved this time. I'm using it for in column. I hope I can remember that, though, because this is the real key to the problem is, you know, if I don't have a consistent use for that, and moved is pretty easy to tell, well, how am I going to remember that especially if I unflip, that the front line here I've kind of flipped over to indicate they're no longer in column. They're going to be the screen so that I can march those shock infantry across to the bridgehead that I so dearly bought. And we're seeing barbarians fighting across here. And there was a reaction move enabling them to turn and face. I forget about that quite often, I fear. And then some additional attacks down here. Nothing really decisive. I've got this picture that this battle may end up being this push against the river, and then the Danaans pulling back to get back towards their base so that they can grab their rallied troops and try again, maybe, with the Trojans maybe chasing them. It just something in me tells me that's what I'm going to see. I'm not sure. Started launching a couple of chariots. I've got this S dude, the Trojan S. He launched a couple of chariots across the river. One of them came across and drove one of the Danaan chariots away. But another one fired on these barbarians, and they charged forward after taking a hit. Now, the less competently, the less tactical quality that barbarians have, the more likely they are to charge. But these managed to do so. They hit it, and they wrecked that chariot. Let's see. And it is gone for good, and they move up into that position. Interesting situation. It's dangerous to shoot at them. They're not like the shock infantry there. They won't just stand and take it necessarily. Although I had a lot of luck buzzing one of the Trojan ones. High air quality, 7 quality. They can take a lot of hits. It's interesting. The attacker superior against the chariots, which is also different. The shock infantry is not. This stuff's scary. Game starts to take a very different feel with this, with so much infantry. The chariots don't really do much, and in fact, some of the chariots are kind of iffy, like the lights with javelins, or the heavy chariots without any missile weapons, where they're not really the kings of the battlefield sweeping around doing destructive things. Instead, we've got these masses of sort of what look like unformed troops just smacking into each other trying to cross this river. It's really an ugly sort of fight, and you can kind of picture in your head just what chaos it must be. Had some losses here. on the activation of SDID. Let's see what else comes. And now launching sort of this side of things, coming from this leader. I have to move these guys. The problem with them is I gotta leave them in place so I can remember who can attack and who can't, basically. But anyway, let's see when. I'll put him about there. That'll allow him to command more. The problem is this little camp here is full. So fights that were perhaps fair, that might have caused some routes, but probably not so much destruction. Well, now we got another 21 points off the Danans, and this is all just because I haven't gotten this guy's action. I can't use momentum on him. I can't move the troops out of the area. I can rally without without a momentum pick, or without his pick, but I can't pull the troops out. And that's why I think I need to get back to the boats, because I'm not safe outside of them. I'm not safe away from them. I don't have a standard or anything to help me recover. And that's kind of weird. We ended the turn with the momentum chip for the Danans, and they played actually get a rally chance too, because nobody moved adjacent to anyone else to begin with. They played the an attempt to challenge with one of these heroes, I think Diomedes here, and the leader just said, I don't care, I'm not interested. He would be very heavily outmatched, and there's no concept of honor here in the way that Samurai has one. You don't lose anything for withdrawing. Now, well, the Danans get to use their chip again. Okay, well, that's not too impressive. So then I triggered it to use Menelaus's forces. Most of his stuff's tired. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He could actually move this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's in column 2, so I'll leave it face up like that. You know, what I ended up doing was triggering some units that are adjacent to other units and attack them, and that worked out pretty well. I killed one and routed another one, and you can see kind of the effects here where I'm pushed in. That's not a great location to be in. I'm going to take some damage for that, there's no question. And the problem is I can't suffer damage with the Danans because the camp is a mess. I don't think they want to fight. I think they want to get out of here. It's a very, very weird situation. Alright, well, we'll see what happens.